Hi guys, and welcome to the second video for Chapter 6. In this video we're going to continue building our view switching application, and where we left off last time we had created custom classes for the root view that was going to handle the switching, and for each of the content views, one that was going to be blue, one that was going to be yellow. We're going to now go ahead and implement code in the root view to throw up one of the content views at the start and then handle the switching whenever we press the button in the toolbar at the bottom of the root view, which will always be visible. So, in the interest of saving some time, I'm going to grab pieces of code. You can download all the source code from the textbook, from the book's website, and I've done that. And I'm going to grab some pieces of that code here to speed things up. So first of all, let's get code for to override the viewDidLoad method. What we want this to do is put up the blue view at the beginning. So that's the view we want to have on startup. So this is what it looks like. The blue view controller variable, which we created down here, we're going to initialize with a call to a storyboard method, instantiate view controller with identifier blue. And this is where we set that storyboard ID when we create the scenes in the storyboard. We'll give them the appropriate identifiers so that it can create them here. So it's going to instantiate that view controller as class blue view controller. It needs the exclamation point here because it's we declared it as an optional down here, an implicitly unwrapped optional, so that we don't have to unwrap it every time we use it, like here, which is the first time we use it. And we're going to say that the view frame is the same frame as the the frame of the controlling view controller, the one we're in, switching view controller. And then we're going to call a method I haven't written yet, which is going to cause, there's no view controller up presently because we're just running for the first time. And the view controller we're going to put up is the blue view controller. So switch view controller takes two arguments. Both of them are view controllers, and it'll tear down the one that's already up, if there is one. If it's nil, it's not going to do anything, and add to the view hierarchy, that is, and make it displayable, the one we want to be displayed. So and that's all there is to that. So we'll get to that error later when we instantiate that function. So let me get some code for the switch views action method. We're going to get it from this same file. And let me talk about what else is going on in here. So, switch views is an action method. The bar button item is the thing that calls it. We're in fact not ever going to use that argument, I don't believe, but just as good practice, you should generally have the sender as an argument. The first part of this code, that is the part that I've highlighted in blue here, is going to create a view controller instance if we need it. We have the two variables, yellow view controller and blue view controller, that exist here in the instance of the class for switching view controller. But they may not be instantiated, and even if they're instantiated, they may not be hooked into the view hierarchy. That is, they may not have a super view. That's what this first line here is checking. If the yellow view controller's super view is nil, that means it's not in the hierarchy. It also may mean it doesn't exist at all. So we'll check that case. If it doesn't exist at all, we're going to create it. So that's what this does. If there is no yellow view controller, we create it. Otherwise, if the one that's not in, so what this is saying is the yellow one not in the hierarchy? That is, are we going to be switching to yellow? If so, we'll create a yellow if we need to. And we only end up down here in the line I have highlighted here if the yellow one is in the hierarchy, which means the blue one is probably not in the hierarchy. If it's not in the hierarchy, we'll create it. So it's just the same code as up here, except for blue. So at the end of this piece of code, we have an instance of the view controller we're going to switch to, either because it was already there or because we just created it. Like I said, this is called lazy loading. The reason it's sort of nice is we're not going to use resources if we never switch views. And it's sort of a generally good practice when you're doing iOS development not to allocate memory for everything at the outset, just in case you might need it, because iOS devices are very highly memory constrained. And in fact, we'll look at the method. We're going to instantiate the method to did receive memory warning to delete these things. If we're tight on the one that's not displayed, we'll delete it, and then we may have to create it again later, but it allows us to save some memory. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll go back to our source code here, and you'll notice that there's code in did receive memory warning. We've never done that before in any of our apps. And what it's going to do is whichever of the view controllers are not in the hierarchy, whichever view controller is not displayed, if there's memory allocated to it, we're going to set the pointer to it to nil, which means the reference count of things that are pointing to that view controller is 0, and it's going to get garbage collected. Let me select that, and we'll come back here to did receive memory warning and put that code in. So that makes our app a little bit more efficient. Okay, going back to the action method. Now, these 3 lines are going to cause the, and I mean, you might as well just treat this as a magic spell at this point. If you want to do these kind of animation things to make your transitions between views look nice, you can look at Stack Overflow or look at the Apple documentation and see what your options are. But basically here we're going to cause a 0.4 of a second flip, sort of like we're turning a card over to the other side to animate our view transition. Then we come to the code that actually does the transition, and we first figure out which transition we're doing. And the way we'll find that out is if the blue view controller exists and it's not, and it is in the view hierarchy, then we're going to be transitioning from blue to yellow. So we'll set the frame of the yellow controller to be our frame, and then we'll call our helper function to switch from blue to yellow. And the code is symmetric for the other way around. We'll set the animation to flip the other direction, to flip from the left instead of flipping from the right. We'll set the frame of the blue view controller to be the frame of the view, and we'll switch from the yellow to the blue. And then we call commit animations to cause the animation to actually happen. you can write the, if you look in the book, you can see a version without the animations if you want to see what's going on with or without those. But we've got them here, so we'll just leave those in. Okay, so the remaining thing to do in this class is to write the switch view controller helping method that's going to actually do the transition. So let's grab that code. I'll put it in here and then explain it. So our errors go away because we now have defined this function switch view controller. It takes two arguments which are optional view controllers, so it's certainly possible for those to be nil. And in fact, in the first call where we set things up in view did load, which runs when the view is the switch view controller view, our controller view is first loaded, we let the first argument actually be nil in that call, and either one of them may be nil later on. And so we check first of all which one is if the from VC is nil, is not equal to nil, then we need to tear it down. And so we set that it's going to move. Will move. Generally, iOS functions that begin with the name will run before something happens to give a chance to do any cleanup that needs to happen there. So we'll call it. Then we'll remove it from the super view, and we'll remove it from the parent's view controller. And for views in the hierarchy, we don't need to pass those things as arguments because they views that are in the hierarchy know who their parent is. They know who their parent is because we set it up when we add them to the hierarchy, which is what happens with this code down here. We'll add a child view controller to ourself, that is the parent view controller. We'll insert it as a subview, and we'll call did move, which is sort of the analog to will move. It gives a chance for things that need to happen after a view controller is set up to happen. Okay, so we've set that up. Now we're ready to add code to our content views. And again, we'll just grab it from the book source code. It's pretty simple. It's very much like the alert code from the previous module. So let's get that code. We'll put it in the blue view controller and the yellow view controller. And these are going to be the action methods for buttons, which we'll, once we instantiate those things. So for the yellow view, I'm sorry, I'm in the blue one, which for some reason is in the parent directory in the book website code. So it's going to be an action method when the blue button's pressed, and it's just going to throw up an alert. And we'll do the same thing in the yellow view controller. Exact same code, except the name of the button is different. And we'll need to connect those up, of course. So we haven't created storyboards for these yet. Presently, we've got one scene in our storyboard, so we're going to need to add some more. So the thing you want to select from the library of stuff is a view controller. And what you get is exactly like the one that's there. I'm going to just sort of, it's overlapping. I'm going to move it so that it sits a little further off to the side. You notice it does not have an arrow pointing to it. It's not our initial scene. And I need to change a couple things about it. I'll select it and then go to its identity inspector. One of these needs to be the blue view and the other the yellow, so I'm going to make this an instance of the class blue view controller, and I'm going to set its storyboard ID to be blue so that that code that we added to the switching view controller can find it when it comes time to instantiate it. And I want to put a button on it. So I'm going to put that button dead in the center. Actually, I'm going to set its constraints to do that as well. So we're going to center it both horizontally. Oops, I didn't select it. I'm going to have to center it both horizontally and vertically in the container. Actually, let me change its name before I do that. Blue button. We'll center it horizontally and vertically in the container. And we're going to link it to its action method. So I'll control drag it to the view controller icon up here. And I have the only event I can handle is blue button pressed with sender. Blue button pressed is the action method I implemented. So I'll go ahead and link it to that. And now we need to create our other view controller for the yellow view controller. So I'll drag another one here, and I'm going to try to, again, I'll neaten it up by moving it beside the other two. So I've got 3 view controllers going on here. Select it. It's going to be my yellow view controller, which is down here at the bottom. They're alphabetical. My storyboard ID for it is going to be yellow. And I need to add a button to it. And I'll put it in the center also. We'll call it yellow button. Go to its attribute inspector to set that. Center it. Connect it to its action method. So control drag to the view controller, and the send event, the action method that's there is the action method in the yellow view controller class. So I'll select that. Checking the identity inspectors that the right things have happened in both these classes. Yeah, for the yellow button and the blue button. So that's all looking good. Let's set the background colors for these. So in the yellow view controller and its attributes, let's set the background to yellow. And for the blue, we'll set the background there to be a very light blue. Yeah, let's make it a little bolder. I think we'll still be able to read it. Yeah. Okay, so we've got those things set. And I believe I've done everything I need to do at this point. I think this is now runnable. So let's go ahead and give that a go. And things are looking good at the start. We've got our blue view loaded, which is supposed to, and our button bar is here along the bottom. when we click switch, it looks like we're switching between views, and if we click the blue button, we get the appropriate alert. Get the appropriate alert, and switch back. The right thing's happening. And you can see how the animation is working as well. It rotates one way when you go from blue to yellow, and the other way when you go from yellow to blue. So that all is looking good as well. And this pretty much exposes all the stuff that has to happen to do switching between views. We're lazy loading things so that if we don't actually switch views, we're not wasting resources. We put the code in the did receive memory warning event handler so that if memory is low, the app can reclaim storage for whichever of the two content views is not presently displayed. We set up everything with constraints, hooked up our action methods, and that brings us to a close. So we'll see you again in the videos for the next module.